Amazing Grace. That's error on my part. So the Hawaiian Host chocolates, if you're wondering why they're at your place, Sylvia loved Hawaiian Host chocolates, and whenever she went home to Hawaii, she would always bring back boxes and boxes of Hawaiian Host chocolates. So we wanted to surround you with all things Sylvia, so please enjoy this. Sorry, I said it quick. Some of you have asked how Sylvia and I became so close. Sylvia and I taught together at Topeka Drive Elementary in Northridge from 1985 to 1990. My last year there, I was going through some difficult life changes. Apparently, I needed Sylvia and Cliff, and at the same time, they must have needed me. As I explained at Cliff's celebration of life just 4 short years ago, a friend asked me if Sylvia and Cliff ever had children. My response was, just me. And apparently Keith. I didn't realize that. I can scoot over, it's okay. Sylvia and Cliff. We were family. Not the kind of family that is proven with the DNA test, but a family of the heart. The kind of family where we kept planning times to get together, even though we lived in different states, because it felt better to be enjoying life's adventures with each other rather than apart. And in our home, we tend to do a lot of nicknames, like Uncle came with us. He actually has a name, it's Brad, but in our home it's Uncle. And Sylvia and Cliff, when the girls were with us, became Audie and Pip Pip. And Cliff became Pip Pip because Mia couldn't say Cliff, and the closest she got was Pip Pip, and so that stuck. And Sylvia became Ai because it means like a loving auntie in Chinese. So Ai and Pip Pip. Over the years, Sylvia and I were many things to each other. Sometimes she was my second mother or my second sister, my mentor, my therapist, my cheerleader, my personal shopper, and my partner in crime. And at times, I was her cheerleader, her travel agent, her Huck Finn, her advisor, and her protector. Somehow, it felt like a one-size-fits-all connection of the heart. There were many traits that drew me to Sylvia. One, we know she was a dedicated teacher. Sylvia was steadfast to the people and ideals in her life. Sylvia loved animals. Sylvia and Cliff always had cats. Oftentimes they had been strays that Sylvia fed at Pierce College, and somehow they made their way into her home. If Sylvia loved you, then that love was sure. Whether you had 2 legs or 4, had gills or feathers, if Sylvia considered you to be part of her family, you just were. Sylvia was humble. She would speak freely of other people's fine points and their accomplishments, but she would shy away from speaking of her own attributes. Kimberly, Sylvia's niece, and I had gone through Sylvia's photos at the house prior to Sylvia's passing. I was stunned at how beautiful Sylvia had been in the years before I met her. When I saw Sylvia, I remarked at how beautiful she had been and truly still was. She said, well, I was Miss Korea at homecoming in 1957 at the University of Hawaii. I couldn't believe that she had not shared that with me during the past 26 years. I said, Syl, why didn't you tell me that earlier? She replied, you didn't ask. Sylvia sought out the finer things in life. She loved beautiful jewelry, elegant, classy, but with a bit of bling. She enjoyed eating at fine restaurants and shopping with an eye on finding the very best of whatever she was shopping for. Thankfully, for those of us with flaws, she wasn't quite as particular when selecting friends. Sylvia and I always made plans to spend time together, often months to a year ahead of time. She had a plane ticket to join us for this past Thanksgiving, as Thanksgiving together was one of our traditions. She and I would do a great deal of cooking, and later, Wayne's and my family of about 28 people would join us. Sylvia was my personal sous chef, She was great at chopping, stirring, and mostly cleaning up after me. Over the years, she did less actual cooking and more just keeping me company while I cooked. But that was great, just to have her there made Thanksgiving a very special holiday. But this year, as Sylvia's brother Cook was terminally ill in Hawaii, she felt the need to stay close to home and chose to stay in California for Thanksgiving. On Thanksgiving Day, while with her mother-in-law Ruth and the Miyashiro family, Sylvia had a debilitating stroke, which then started an unbelievable set of events over the next 4 months. Pneumonia, a contagious bacterial infection, and finally, she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. I am so thankful for all of you for being here for Sylvia while she was in Baldwin Park, Camarillo, and in the hospital in Woodland Hills. She needed you, and you were here for her. And special appreciation to Glenda, her sister-in-law, and Susan Grossback. You all had tireless devotion to Sylvia. A few years ago, Sylvia started saying something I had not heard her say before. If I did something nice for her, she would say, "Much appreciation." Now, having known Sylvia for 20-some years and having never heard this particular phrase, I found it a little unusual. One night in the hospital, I thought of asking Sylvia where that saying had come from, as I knew my time for getting answers from her was growing short. I forgot to ask her, but that same evening, I received an email from Susan and Rachel Lim, one of Sylvia's past Topeka families and now friends. It was signed, "Much appreciation." I realized then that each one of us has probably picked up several traits and habits of the people that we care about. Over the years, I believe that Sylvia had taken on a combination of your little traits, and some of them she has passed on to me and to my loved ones. I now realize the part of who I am is because of your love and influence on Sylvia. Sylvia and I often dreamed together that one day she would sell her home in Woodland Hills, and then she would live half the year in Colorado and the other half in Hawaii with her sisters Myrna and Charlotte. When Cliff passed, I asked Sylvia if it was time to start looking for a house for her in our hometown of Louisville. She said that she was not yet ready to leave her support system in California. Having gotten to spend time with many of you these past 4 months, I understand why she wasn't ready to say goodbye to you guys. Over the years, I have had reason to believe that even though a loved one dies, they do not necessarily leave us. Since Cliff passed, he has been leaving me pennies. I would just find them here and there, but when I found them, a clear vision of Cliff would pop into my mind, and I would feel the love that we shared. Sometimes I laugh out loud when I find Cliff's pennies, like the time I opened a jar of salsa, and a penny flew out from between my palm and the salsa lid. I laughed and said, "Cliff, now you are just showing off." In the 4 months that Sylvia was hospitalized and in rehab centers, I flew out to be with her 9 times. Every time I flew into Los Angeles, I would find a penny in the airport, letting me know that Cliff was surrounding me with his love. Since Sylvia passed, I believe that she has left me some gifts as well. While Cliff leaves me pennies, Sylvia leaves me dimes. Which is perfectly fitting, knowing her love of silver, bling, and things just a little better than ordinary. What I really find heartwarming is when I find a dime and a penny together. That has happened to me at least 4 times since Sylvia's passing in March. What a wonderful gift. And actually, if you think about that, how often do you find money like that? It doesn't just happen. This summer, my family and I will take Sylvia's ashes to Honolulu to have a graveside service with family and friends at the Oahu Cemetery. On August 8th, her ashes will be interred with those of Cliff, Cook, and her parents. We will have lunch at the Leaky Leaky Drive-In in her memory. If you find yourself in Honolulu at that time, please feel free to join us. Still, a lifetime was not long enough to love you. Much appreciation.